Thank you for joining Celebrating Failure or Success. Why not both? I'm very happy to participate in this year's edition of J4K. Hi, my name is Ixchel Ruiz. I'm from Mexico, I live in Switzerland, I work for JFrog, I'm a Java champion. I have collaborated in some books, I'm part of some organizations, and I love to travel around the world to meet fellow developers, share knowledge, and talk about technology. So, celebrating failure and success. I do believe that we can celebrate both. Celebrating success comes naturally. We have accomplished our goal. We can celebrate. Our happiness is contagious, and we congratulate each other with ease. But failure is different. Failure tends to cause a deep emotional response. We can feel trapped, stuck in a sea of sadness. What we can feel may be so profound that it can make us feel physically sick and emotionally depleted, depressed. And those feelings can have real and strong side effects. So strong that they affect our physical body. For example, the Takotsubo syndrome or broken heart syndrome. So how come we can celebrate failure? Should we even celebrate failure? In recent years, our view on failure has changed a lot. John Bowers, in his TED Talk, is crystal clear about the deadly effects of small errors and questions why did we move away from seeking perfection. He believes that at some point it was too difficult or too painful to seek perfection and face failure. So we decided to dismiss our natural ability to deal with it and replace it with a lower acceptance level. And now we are all forced to sit back and just accept this new norm or good enough attitude and the results that come with it, with huge costs. On the other side, Astro Teller, while at X, formerly called Google X, the Moonshot Factory, describes how every day they will get excited and cheer. How are we going to kill our project today? Because X believed that the only way to get people to work on big, risky things, audacious ideas, is to make it safe to fail. Teams kill their ideas as soon as there is evidence to support it. They are rewarded for it. They get applause from their peers, hugs and high fives from their managers. They can get promoted and will receive a bonus, every member of the team. Avoid failure and seek perfection. Celebrate failure. Failure is a little tricky, even more in IT. At the project level, failing a project can have devastating consequences for the entire organization. In this particular paper, the authors examined more than 1,400 projects, comparing their budgets and estimated performance benefits with the actual costs and results. Most incurring high expenses. Black swans are very common in IT. One of 6 projects that overrun their budget went as high as 200%. Meanwhile, the average was almost 70%. Failure in major IT projects have sunk whole corporations. Because software is an integral part of most products, if not all products out there. But some engineers and managers who may be in charge of product development do often have a limited understanding on how to implement the components. It's common that developers, even though can write useful applications, sometimes do not understand the business model. And in our professional careers, failures can have deep impact. How we react to failure when we think we should have been successful. Michael, as part of the MIT's Lincoln Laboratory, suffered many setbacks. In a project where success should have been an easy slam dunk, it deeply impacted his whole career. Now, let's have a closer look at failure in software development. Testing embraces failure. Fail fast. Fail often. Mutate your tests. Bring chaos. Never trust a test that you haven't seen failed. Have a healthy number of tests. Unit, integration, contract, consumer and provider, UI, end-to-end, API, acceptance, and exploratory tests. And even make them look good, beautiful, with videos, with pictures. Insecurity. How often do we analyze, run metrics or heuristics to verify the provenance, quality, security, maintainability of our dependencies? Some organizations have embraced different practices that makes them more prone to add quality checks during the entire workflows. Other organizations, not so much. In both cases, failure has a center stage, either at development or in production. What about our contracts? How do we manage the contracts we define? Because an API is a contract. How well do we document errors, react to them, and plan accordingly? From 23,000 web APIs that had breaking change between versions, almost none use any deprecation mechanism. So much failure. And our attitude? Sometimes very different. Embrace it, seek it, disregard it. Good, bad, awful. I was confused until I encountered this issue. The April's 2011 issue of Harvard Business Review is all about failure. It is more than 10 years old, but it is as relevant today as it was then. Nature of failure. Not all failures are created equally. Mistakes fall into 3 broad categories: preventable, complexity related, intelligent. Preventable. Preventable failures are the ones that can be indeed considered bad. They usually involve deviations from a specification in a closely defined process of high volume or routine operations. Deviations from specifications in a closely defined process. Rings a bell in our industry? We will come back to that. Unavoidable failures in complex systems. A large number of failures are due to the uncertainty of work, a particular combination of needs, people, and problems that may never occur before. Some failures can be averted by following best practices. Still, small process failures are inevitable. Intelligent failures at the frontier. Failures in this category can rightly be considered good because they provide valuable new knowledge that can help an organization leap ahead of the competition and ensure its future growth. Discovering new drugs, creating a radically new business, designing an innovative product, and testing consumer reactions in brand new markets. All these are tasks that require intelligent failures. So, how fast we learn, it's also a key part of how to celebrate failure. The major discovery of this study was a very surprising conclusion. It was the discovery of a tipping point between success and failure. As people fail over and over, two groups emerge on how they deal with it. People that can be actually quite similar in terms of learning strategies or their characteristics. But depending on which side of the tipping point they are, they could actually experience fundamentally different outcomes. One group of people below the tipping point that may be failing over and over, and they keep trying, but if they are not learning enough to actually achieve success, they are in the stagnation region, trying over and over, but failing to learn enough to initiate an intelligent pattern with the improvement. On the other side of the tipping point, which is above the threshold, people fail over and over, but they get to fail faster and faster to eventually approach success. So this creates quite a surprising prediction between what it means then and how we all failures, or in other words, how not all failures lead to success. It all depends how fast we learn from them and detect the different patterns. Increase the return on failure. Failure are going to be there, but they are expensive. So how do we benefit the most, the fastest? Pixar's president, Ed Catmull, used to say, mistakes are an unnecessary evil. They aren't evil at all. They are an inevitable consequence of doing something new and should be seen as valuable. On the other hand, management processes for budgeting, resource allocation, and risk control are built on predictability and efficiency. And executives get promoted by showing they are in control. So even if people understand that they can and should fail, they do everything possible to avoid it. But there is a way to resolve this conundrum. Extract value from failure so you can measure and improve your return on it, boosting benefits while controlling costs. And how do we achieve that? With 3 steps. Learn from every failure. Begin by getting people to reflect on projects or initiatives that disappointed. Of course, this doesn't come naturally. Reviewing past problems isn't just tedious, it's painful. Most of us would prefer to invest our time looking forward, not back. Share lessons. While it's useful to reflect on individual failures, the real payoff comes when you spread the lessons across the organization. You need to disseminate the knowledge generated in each one of this experience, in each one of this iteration, as fast as possible, as complete as possible. That is key. Review your pattern of failure. The 3rd step is to take a bird's eye view of the organization and ask whether your overall approach to failure is working. Are you learning from every unsuccessful endeavor? Are you sharing those lessons across the organization? And are they helping you improve your strategy and execution? For all of this to happen, for all of this to take place, psychological safety has to be present. Psychological safety is fundamental to any organization. Well, trust is the expectation that others' future action will be favorable to one's interest. Psychological safety refers to a climate in which people are comfortable being and expressing themselves. If we have an environment where safe participation is fostered, interactions are perceived as interpersonally non-threatening. So, decision making, information sharing, interaction frequency, and safety occur naturally. So we need psychological safety in our teams and in our organizations. This is a must. So coming back to failure, how do we apply everything that we have seen so far into IT? During the software development cycle, we have different stages and processes that are prone to failure. We know that. And if our organizations or our team have already adopted DevOps, DevSecOps of shift left, we know we need more feedback loops, faster, with more rich data that can help us prevent, correct, and sometimes predict problems in our entire software development cycle. And we usually deal with 2 different types of failure in software development: preventable and intelligent. Because building software, running security and quality assurance metrics or heuristics can be decomposed in a series of workflows. Our workflows for continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. We already know these concepts. Here, we should have well-defined mechanisms and tools that minimize those errors. provide as much feedback as possible in timely manner. So we need tools that provide that much information, that can store, produce, and retrieve, publish, and help us in continuing our processes. So we need tools that foster single source of truth with external metadata visible to the entire organization that can store and serve the artifacts we need and produce while running security checks on said artifacts. And there are really good tools out there that fit that particular profile. And we need them because we need to continually explore and offer to our consumer different choices and new functionalities. And the only way to create as many different options, as many different deployments during the day, A/B testing, is by having the right processes with the right tools. We also need to bring novel ideas or discover new ways of interaction and fulfilling needs and wants. Or we need to react fast to new challenges. In IT, in software development, we really are closer to understand the nature of our tasks. We can see them, we can classify them quite nicely. And now that we know the different types of failure that we can encounter and how some of them can be preventable, and there is nothing to learn from them except to how to minimize them and keep them in the past, like they don't occur again and again. Or we can actually foster the good failures where we are continuously learning and discovering new patterns. That is the way to move forward. Minimize preventable failures and learn from intelligent ones. And if we never stop learning, we can be successful. So I hope that in this session I have given you a different perspective on the type of failures that we can encounter, how and what do we need to learn from the intelligent failures? What is the tipping point where we can leverage or convert or actually move forward between failure and success? What are the minimal steps that we require to extract as much return of investment from our failures? What do we need in any single development team or any single organization to foster this kind of post-mortem on our problems or our errors? How we can actually create these environments where we can reflect on what we have done wrong without taking any negative emotion with us. This is about accountability. This is about moving forward. This is about removing the negative emotions of failure and crossing over to learning and success. Things are not always what they seem, and we can not use the same label to group failure. Failure cannot be bad, failure cannot be good in abstracts. Failure depends on the context, and success depends on how we face failure, in our attitude, in our organizational attitude. So let's celebrate failure and success. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this session. I will have loved to be there right now with you for the Q&A. Sadly, I'm actually moving between conferences and I'm flying at this precise moment. But I'm always open to feedback. Please tell me if you like the session, any idea of different topics that you want to discuss more, or maybe what idea is still missing in this. From my perspective is when I really was confused about failure when I sat down with different developers and talked about test. What do we document in test? Are we documenting the state of the system? Are we documenting the requirement and specification? Are we documenting what we are supposed to, what we assume that the system should be doing? And I received different responses to those questions. So I was never ever sure about, for example, the nature of the tests. And if you're not sure about the nature of the test or what you're trying to prove with your test, then if it fails or is success, it's also already based on these assumptions. So for me, failure was very tricky. And I didn't have a clear answer, and I don't like when I don't have clear answers. So my response to this kind of situation is go back and investigate. So I try to take a bird's eye view on the problem from different perspectives, different industries, and go back to what the people are dedicating their lives to this. Think about failure. How do we face it? How do we learn? What is the process of learning? What is the process of reflection? What do we need for that? And so this is the session that was created based on that. Please, feedback is always welcomed, and that's my Twitter handler. So I hope you can get into contact or send a tweet. Actually, that helps me a lot. And the slides are going to be available. So thank you very much, and I hope you continue enjoying the conference.